if it gets to physical symptoms, it means you're already too late.
Yeah.
The physical symptoms are sometimes a response to something that has been happening all along, but you didn't pay attention to it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Friday coffee chat. We're sitting here. It is beautiful outside, and we're having some tea. I'm having some oolong, and Tina's having...
What am I having again? I don't remember what you made.
It's a black tea.
It's a black tea.
It's a black tea with a bit... What is it called? The thing that is in the Earl Grey?
Oh, with bergamot.
Yeah,
like
with
this.
bergamot.
Yeah,
but it's not an Earl Grey, but it's kind of like a Earl Grey.
It's nice. I'm lately into like flowery teas, like jasmine.
I know,
bergamot.
you're having your jasmine era, I feel.
But it's nice. I don't know. It almost feels like just a moment. You know, like these ads for tea when they have these vibes, and you kind of like have this woman who's just sitting there with a cup of tea and is just enjoying. That's me with a jasmine cup, like for real.
Well, actually, quite funny. I'm just thinking about what you described, and it's like literally the opposite of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Because today is about toxic productivity. And when you are in this mind space of toxic productivity, probably the only thing you want is to be this woman with a jasmine tea who is relaxed.
I feel like
but you are not there.
I feel like it's kind of going back to the episode where we discussed the soft life as a response to us being burned out and overwhelmed all the time and not having the right balance in life. And toxic productivity can definitely be an antecedent of that, so a cause for that.
It does, but you know, we really wanted to take some time to talk about this topic because what we have realized is that whenever we post something on social media about, you know, the difference between good productivity, healthy productivity, and toxic productivity, one of the most common questions that we get in the comments is, well, how do I actually know what toxic productivity is? Am I just being really productive and, you know, being ambitious and achieving my goals? Or did I slip into the toxic side of it and it's actually toxic productivity? And this really made us think about this is such a good point because somehow we've gotten to this place where, you know, we don't even know. Is it toxic? Or are we just, you know, hustling and achieving our goals and doing what is necessary to build the life of our dreams?
Yeah. So let's dive right into why do we even have to talk about toxic productivity? Because if you think about it, this may not have been a thing that previous generations would really focus on or would really even discuss. So this seems to be a rather new phenomenon that is creeping into the workplace. So how did this even come up to be a thing? And the first thing has to do with our beloved hustle culture. That we have talked about over and over and over on this podcast. And it is really this romanticizing of hustling, a romanticizing of always being productive, always being on, always doing something that is in favor of your goals, and always having activities or behaviors that make sense in what productivity is defined as. So not necessarily what you think is productive, but almost what productivity is thought of as a general definition. And that can be, for instance, working overtime and finishing that one thing that you wanted to finish, but even if you don't have energy for it, you're still gonna go and work on it without realizing that, hey, maybe that is not really productive for me right now, but just because there is this label of productivity. And it just, gives you this idea of you have to do it, even though you might not have the energy. And even though what is productive right now for you might be to just rest.
But you know, I also feel like at the core of it lies this myth, this illusion that doing more or, putting more hours into something will mean that you're being more productive.
Exactly.
I feel like this is so much at the core of this hustle culture, of the romanticization of it, of this idea that when you do more, you produce more and you're doing things better. And that is oftentimes just a massive illusion, and it is actually not true, right?
Yeah.
You're keeping yourself busy, but are you being effective? Are you being efficient? Are you being truly productive?
I think it really comes down to this idea that we have been instilled with, which is working hard will get you the results you want. And we've noticed that that might not always be true, because this working hard can take you to an extreme where the quantity does not translate into quality, where working hard over time may not necessarily lead you to the goals that you wanted, but may actually deplete your resources, make you burned out, make you isolated from others, because maybe you're just so focused on being productive that you are giving up other things in your life, like spending out time with people that you love. And that can be problematic. We also have this whole idea that this kind of productivity is being praised and is being reinforced. And since we love feeling validated by others, when we are productive, we also get comments like, oh my God, you're working so hard, or I don't know.
It's really being praised. It's being put on a pedestal, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, she works
more
so
you do, the
hard.
better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She works so hard. She works days and nights, blah, blah, blah. And if you think about it, sure, it's nice to hear that. Maybe it gives you some kind of like validation, like, yeah, I'm doing well. I'm on the right track. People are seeing my efforts, hurrah, but it's not necessarily a healthy validation, because it can lead you to the point where maybe by chasing productivity, you're actually chasing praise from other people.
And we will go into that later on a little bit more, because there is something behind this toxic productivity. There is a reason why we allow ourselves to get to this point. But before we dive into that, let's first discuss what actually the signs are of toxic productivity. How can you learn, or how can you notice whether you're being toxically productive or whether you're actually just being ambitious and chasing your goals?
So the first one is actually feeling guilty when you're not doing something productive. And I mean, I have felt that way.
I feel like that's such a big one.
It's such a big one.
This is such a defining characteristic of so many of us, in the sense of it dictates our life sometimes. Just this feeling of guilt.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're not being productive.
And I think it also is related to, again, these appraisals that, I have to be productive to make an activity worthy of my time,
Yeah.
And it's a question of, okay, we have limited time. How do we invest this time to make sure that we achieve our goals, to make sure that we're disciplined, to make sure that we grow, and all of that? And it can start from a very good intention, because the intention might be, I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to run for a promotion, and it can be anything really. So, and it can start from a good point, but it can turn into something toxic the minute it interferes with your daily functioning in other areas of your life and makes you feel guilty that, hey, I'm actually spending time reading right now, but maybe I should be. I also heard this example of people who read fiction. They think that might be a waste of time, and they need to read nonfiction, because only nonfiction is going to help them grow and help them learn something, and only reading nonfiction is productive. And reading fiction, like stories, that's just non-productive, and it's not going to lead to anything. And I'm just like, no.
It's so funny, because I believe I've come across some research actually that shows that reading fiction can be really great for your creativity and stuff like that. Something like this, that specifically reading fiction has a lot of benefits.
I think I know the paper you're referring to. And it was basically not only creativity, but also empathy. because you tend to like get to know these characters, right? You empathize with them, and that can be productive because it can cultivate your ability of connecting with others. So you can appraise it in different ways. And I feel like that is also the issue in a way, right? Because we may define productivity in very factual terms. Let's say working is productive, not working is not productive. But then you can still interpret things as being productive on your own subjective or in your own subjective lens, right? So even reading fiction then can be productive if you think about it.
No, absolutely. And I think it really, like, the key here is, again, the feeling of guilt. And when it comes to productivity, when you're being productive, you shouldn't be feeling guilty, right? So when you think about what am I doing? What do I want to do today? It shouldn't come from a feeling of guilt. And I think this is the key in this first sign of toxic productivity, that is telling you this is toxic. When you're feeling this guilt, probably this is really going into the more unhealthy realms of productivity. And also it oftentimes comes with this feeling of restlessness, right?
Yeah.
Kind of not being able to sit at one place and to just be for a little bit, right? And feeling restless because, not because you have energy and you would, enjoy doing something, but rather this restlessness coming from this feeling of guilt.
Exactly. So that's the first sign. If you're feeling guilty, you might want to reconnect with how you appraise and how you define productivity, because it could very much be that if you are not productive in the big sense of being productive, maybe you're productive in a different way that is also good for you.
The second sign is having the mindset of work first and fun second. And hear me out, because I know this is a big cultural aspect as well. There are some cultures where this is actually a saying, doing the work first and then you can have fun. But the idea here is that this kind of mindset basically instills this idea that you need to earn your right to rest and recover and relax and just live and enjoy. And this is where it becomes problematic, because you being able to just live and do what is good for you, or do the quote unquote unproductive things in life, that you first need to earn this. And with everything that we know about, the importance of recovery and relaxation for later productivity, this just doesn't, like, the math isn't mathing. This is not how it works, basically.
Exactly. It's not sustainable in the long run. And the reason why it's not sustainable in the long run is that if you think about it, work never ends. There's always something more to do. There's always going to be something more to learn. There's always going to be an extra task that you can do before the day ends. And if you are going to focus on the first work, then fun, without making a very clear decision on what counts as enough work to call yourself a productive person, this can escalate into you not even having time to relax. And this can escalate into toxic productivity, where you don't even get the time to have the fun that you earned, because there's always more and more to do.
And this is such a good point, actually, what you just said, right? Thinking, like, it's so easy that we get into this mindset of I haven't done enough. Well, what is enough?
Yeah.
What does this actually mean? Because enough is so vague. There's no proper definition behind that, in the sense of what does it actually mean? What do you need to have achieved?
And I think
that's
that can
so
open
important.
up a whole can of worms, because when you think about what is enough, this can be related to so many things. Let's say doing something, being productive enough may be just, hey, I've had like 3 hours of focus time today. I've gotten a lot of good quality work done. I think that's enough for today. So it is very subjective on what enough is. And that is something that everybody needs to decide for themselves. But what is really important is to decide what is enough and to not let that be decided by other people, and to be okay with doing what you have done, even though other people might be doing more or less.
But you know what? I feel like this second sign, so like the mindset of, doing work first and, having fun afterwards, and also the question of what is enough really ties very well into the third sign, which is that you cannot think about anything else other than getting things done. And this really goes into, listen, and this is coming from someone, I love my to-do list, I need my to-do list, I need my task manager, and this is keeping my life together, right? But once you actually have the feeling that your to-do list is dictating your life and is not there for you to be to have control over your life, but like basically your to-do list has control over you, this is where things become really tricky, because then the only thing you think about is, okay, I need to get this done, this done, this done, this done. Have I checked this off? Have I checked that off? And this is where you can really actually drive yourself insane, because this is the only thing that matters and that you can think about. And that is a very stressful space to be in.
Exactly. And I think it's also, again, I'm just really focusing today on the subjective versus objective. What is urgency? What counts as urgency? I remember I had phases in my life where I really wanted a project to be done. And I had this urge to almost, get it done, even though it was already late, even though it could have waited until the next day. Like, it wasn't something that, I wasn't on a strict deadline. But my mind needed the closure so bad that I created this fake urgency that this needs to be done right now. And if it's not done right now, even if I would mechanically, let's say, close my laptop and just do something else, I would still think about it. My mind would still continue processing, yeah, I still need to do that, then I need to do that, then I need to do that. And then if that doesn't work, I'll do this and this and this and this. And it was still focusing on the work itself, even though I was doing a completely different thing.
So what helped you out of that headspace? Because I can imagine, this is something that I have experienced as well. And I'm sure so many of us experience at least a few times in our lives, right? Where it's like, what has helped you to get out of that headspace in that moment and be like, you know what? I don't need to do it now because there is no urgency. And what helped? What worked for you?
There was one time where it has gotten quite bad, where at some point I would be working, but it would not be in any way productive. Like, at some point, I think my eye was actually twitching.
Actually?
Like actually.
So okay.
So
we know when you get physical symptoms,
this is
whatever that may be, it is time to take action and you need to calm down.
And this is where I felt almost like a hypocrite, because I was like, okay, what the hell? My eye is already twitching. This is not that important. If this is not going to be important in a month, this is not going to be important in 6 months. So why am I so erratic about it? Like, why do I really need to get this done right now? And this is when I was like, you know what? If it gets to physical symptoms, it means you're already too late.
Yeah.
The physical symptoms are sometimes a response to something that has been happening all along, but you didn't pay attention to it. And these are the mental health symptoms, right? So feeling exhausted, having sleep problems, for instance, feeling anxious, feeling stressed, and all of that. The physical symptoms come afterwards, and they are a sign that things haven't been going very well for quite some time already. And this is where I was like, you know what? Enough. Like, if I've gotten to this point, I'm not doing this anymore. And now I think that experience was almost like a bump in the road that has really helped me to gauge a little bit better my own feelings of stress, of exhaustion, so that I can stop before it gets to physical symptoms.
Absolutely. So it really is then about taking a bit of a bird's eye view, like distancing yourself from the situation, being like, okay, is it necessary to feel like there's urgency right now. Is there true urgency? Do I need to get all of these things done? And I guess also, the struggling to fall asleep or to, sleep through and having a very kind of good nights of sleep. These are all ways in which, you can see, okay, what is actually happening. And I guess realizing what is going on is always the first step to being able to change it and move to a more healthy productivity.
Before we go into the next sign of toxic productivity, if you're enjoying this Friday coffee chat, make sure to subscribe and comment what has been keeping you from being truly productive and whether maybe you have fallen into the toxic productivity trap. The fourth sign that we wanted to discuss when it comes to toxic productivity is actually a very interesting one because it is probably the most unproductive result you can get from thinking that you are productive. And that is becoming sloppy. And what we mean here is when you are so focused on being productive, you start multitasking. You start focusing on multiple things at the same time because you want to get it done as soon as possible. And this is where your brain just checks out because it cannot do a lot of things at high quality at the same time. That's just not how our brains are made.
We think that we can do all of these things and we really focus on quantity in that moment and not quality. And it goes back to this idea, right? Is more and is more better? And that's not necessarily the case. And when you're sitting and, I don't know, you have emails open there, working on a presentation somewhere else, and if you feel like, I don't know, you would preferably be able to cook on the side as well or something, or do some chores, this is when you really know you are multitasking. And I feel like multitasking, like when you find yourself trying to figure out how to do multiple things at the same time, it's a very strong sign that this might be toxic productivity.
And I have to say, I feel like women tend to, especially women, they tend to think that multitasking is something that will help them get more done in less time. And I think we are reared in that way because we also see maybe our mothers, for instance, working, taking care of the kids, stirring the pot, and at the same time being on the phone and so on, I don't know, checking something for work. So we have all of these examples in our lives where it almost seems like multitasking is a good thing that will help you get more done in less time. But in reality, what happens is that you're just confusing your brain and you are telling your brain to do multiple things at the same time, and it doesn't know what to focus on, and it doesn't know what's important right now.
It really is about not overburdening your brain in a way. There's only so much it can do. It's already doing so many things. Give it a break or be kind to it. I really think about it being kind to my brain when I'm not like stuffing it with so many things that that it has to do at the same time. And this also leads us to the fifth sign of toxic productivity, which is being overworked. And before you ask what we mean with being overworked can manifest in many different ways, right? Think about things such as feeling exhausted or not feeling like you're taking enough time to just have a meal, your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner in peace. If you feel like you don't have enough time anymore, or you're not taking enough time to spend quality moments with your friends or your family, and kind of really taking a moment and looking at, okay, what am I spending my time with? What am I doing? How does my life look like? And do I feel like there is a sense of, time and space to be able to do things without constantly feeling rushed and exhausted can really help to understand where you are and whether, again, you being productive is healthy or whether it has become quite toxic for you.
I think it really ties back to what we've said in the beginning of the episode, which is if you feel like your work is creeping into other areas of your life where you feel like you don't have enough time for other roles in your life, even for yourself, or to even just enjoy the small things. If you've caught yourself thinking, you know what, I haven't enjoyed a meal in peace in a while, or you know what, I don't remember the last time I had an hour or two to do something for myself just because, that might be a sign that you are feeling overworked, and it might be a sign that maybe you need to reprioritize certain things in your life, because we are not unidimensional beings and we require multiple roles, we require multiple dimensions in our lives to feel fulfilled and happy. And if it's almost like an investment strategy, right? If you put all of your eggs in one basket, they might break. And that is the same with only focusing on work versus focusing on other areas of your life and nurturing those as well. And perhaps one of the most intense symptoms that you can get with toxic productivity is feelings of anxiety. And it almost feels like the world is going to crumble if something doesn't get done. And that is an extreme case, of course, but it can definitely happen. And it can even lead to bad mental health experiences.
I do think this happens more frequently, though, than we want to believe, where it can start very small in the sense of, you know, you weren't able to finish your to-do list and you start ruminating about it not being possible and stressing and getting very anxious about what that might mean. And a lot of the times, the reality is that our body literally reacts as if, you know, almost
as if you're
like
dying,
as if you're being, I don't know,
chased by a
tiger or something, right? So you really have these strong feelings of anxiety, even though if you think about it, if you take a step back and look at it, nothing truly bad has happened. And a task that you didn't manage today can always be done tomorrow, and can always be done the day after. That is the reality, right? Maybe we wanted to get it done today, but most of the times, nothing's gonna happen if you just do it the day after or even the week after. I feel like sometimes we've lost a bit like this sense of reality.
It is.
Where it's like, okay, but what are we doing? Unless you're actually saving lives. And that's a whole other discussion. But if a certain presentation, it doesn't get 100% done until today, unless tomorrow is the deadline, you will be fine. Like, no one's gonna die.
I feel like it's just our brain is not able to distinguish true threat from fake threat, to the point where in our minds that presentation deadline is a tiger, and if we don't do that, we might die. Like it's such a threat appraisal, but our brain cannot distinguish between whether that is a true threat appraisal or whether that is just an artificial one that we have created for ourselves, or maybe the environment has created. Again, because somebody may say to you, oh, this is so urgent, you need to get this done. And you have this urgency in your head that maybe it's not even there. So it is really about taking a step back and just thinking, wait a minute. Is that truly something I need to stress about? Is this going to matter in a week, a month, 6 months, a year? And if not, then it is probably not worthy of your resources, and it's not worthy of ruminating over it.
To use the words of this guy from TikTok, they call it a deadline, but nobody actually dies. Anyway, so let's say you've been listening to, these signs, and you realize that, hey, maybe I have gotten into a habit of toxic productivity. What can you do? And we just briefly want to go through a few next steps that you can take to kind of move away from the toxic productivity. And the very first one is to take a very good look within and connect with yourself and ask yourself, okay, where is this coming from? Why have I gotten to this position where what started as healthy productivity and ambition has now, gotten quite toxic for me? And there is multiple reasons why this might be. It might be fear of failure. It might be perfectionism. It might be imposter syndrome. It might be, what we also mentioned at the start, this very strong desire to receive praise and do things right and do things well that might have gotten you there. But like really taking a step back and reflecting on, okay, what is it that is fueling this toxic productivity is the very first, very important step.
The second thing that you can do, and again, this is something very subjective, and everybody will have a different idea of what productivity is to have a very clear definition for yourself on what healthy productivity means to you. This is a very, very subjective thing, a very, very subjective definition. And having that definition for yourself can really help you gauge what is enough, can really help you gauge what is urgent, and can really help you gauge how you want to be productive on a given day. So then it doesn't really become something that other people tell you on whether you're productive or not, but it comes from within. And there is a lot of confidence in that. And there is a lot of emotional stability when you decide for yourself what you count as productive or not.
And so all of these steps that we now discussed, right, on how you can get out of toxic productivity, we have a lot of different Friday coffee chats that you can use as a resource and go back and listen to them to know where to start. And we will have them linked in the episode description, so make sure to check it out.
We hope that this episode has helped you gauge a little bit whether you have fallen in the trap of toxic productivity, or maybe whether you are actually doing okay, which in that case, congratulations. And we have really touched upon the signs of toxic productivity. And if you have found yourself in any of these signs, perhaps it is time to take a step back and reassess what your priorities are, to perhaps look inwards and think a little bit about your own priorities, think a little bit about what is keeping you from being okay with a certain amount of productivity, or feeling okay with doing maybe not everything on a given day, and being more empathetic with yourself.
If you've been loving this Friday coffee chat, you can support our chats by buying us a coffee. The link for that is in the episode description. And if you think that this Friday coffee chat would be so helpful for your bestie, make sure to send it to them. See you next week.
Bye.